Afternoon, um, and welcome to Poetry Lockdown, day 91. Um, it's a Sunday, and if you've been tracking this lockdown, some of the videos, I'm really interested, both as a writer and a reader of poetry, and those intersections between poetry and prayer and our lives of faith. And so this poem absolutely caught my attention, and I think it's a great example of the ways in which poetry and prayer can blend. It's a fantastic poem. So I'm going to read the poem first, and then, as usual, talk a little bit about why I love and admire it. So, Thank You, Jesus by Teri Cross Davis. When the blue and red sirens pass you, when the school calls because your child beat the exam and not a classmate, when the smartphone drops but does not crack, the rush escaping your mouth betrays your upbringing. Thank you, Jesus. A balm over the wound. When the mammogram finds only density. When the playground tumble results in a bruise, not a broken bone. Like steam from a hot tea kettle. Thank you, Jesus. And the pent-up fear vents upward, out. Maybe it's a hand over breast, supplication learned deeper than flesh, as if one could shush the soul, the fluttering heartbeat with 3 words. Maybe it's not so dire, an almost trip on the sidewalk, the accumulated sales total showing savings upon savings. Maybe it's as small as an empty seat on the metro, or maybe thank you, Jesus, becomes the refrain every time your husband pulls into the driveway, alive and whole, and no one has mistaken him for all the black, scary things. You mutter it, helpless to stop yourself from the invocation of a grandmother who gave you your first Bible. You say it because your mother, even knowing your doubt as a vested commodity, still urges prayer. You learned early to cast the net. Thank you, Jesus. And it's a sweet needle that gathers the fraying thread, hemming security in steady stitches. From birth, you've heard this language. As an adult, you've seen religion used nakedly as ambition. Yet, this sacrifice of praise still slips past your lips. This lyrical martyr of your dying faith. I am very moved by this poem. Um, and I know, right, just from the admission of the speaker of this poem, the last line, that this poet sees her own faith as dying. And I have to say, what this poem enacts really puts my own prayer to shame. And I don't see my own faith as dying, but next to the intimacy that this poet speaks of, when she's addressing the divine, next to the willingness to invite the divine into the everyday, next to the willingness of the poet to praise, next to the willingness of the poet to bring the divine into deep sufferings, especially related to racism. This poet's prayer puts me to shame. So I know she may say, this is a sacrifice of praise that feels like it's representing a dying faith, but it feels alive to me, and so I'm really deeply moved by it. Um, the other thing that this poem for me really spoke to, um, I love that the poet notes something that I think, a lot of either believers or people who feel estranged from the belief of their childhood note, that religion has been used nakedly, as ambition. And it's impossible for me not to remember this week that the president has inserted himself into, an intramural Catholic war from my faith tradition, and also held up a Bible to sanctify his actions. Um, and I just think when I look at this poem, how this poem speaks um, to me Jesus as someone with the person who is struggling the most. And Jesus was a poor peasant who was executed by an empire. And so to think of one of the world's most powerful men trying to use that religion is to me laughable, and I hope it does not work. So that to me is a good place to end this reflection, closing out with those last powerful lines. From birth, you've heard this language. As an adult, you've seen religion used nakedly as ambition, yet this sacrifice of praise still slips past your lips, this lyrical martyr of your dying faith. Thank you, Teri Cross Davis, for this exceptional poem, and thank you all for listening.